The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a soft hiss. Ambassador Zektar of the Villani Empire walked inside, his forearms trembling slightly as he approached the speaking platform. The chamber held representatives from over 200 species, yet an uncomfortable silence filled the air. "Honored members," Zektar began, his voice shaking, "we must discuss the humans again." A wave of nervous energy swept through the chamber. Several delegates shifted in their seats. Others made quiet clicking sounds that meant fear in their languages. The Krillian representative actually stood up and moved 3 seats farther away from the platform. "For 300 years," Zektar continued, "we have followed one simple rule. No species enters human space. No ships cross into their territory. No exploration vessels approach their systems. This rule has kept our galaxy peaceful." Elder Threxon of the Assembly leaned forward. His ancient eyes showed worry. "Why do you bring this up now, Ambassador?" "Because yesterday, one of our research ships drifted into the edge of human space by accident. The crew nearly died from fear before the humans even found them. At the neutral trading station Kepler 442, Captain Jake Morrison stepped off his ship. The human wore a simple blue uniform and carried no visible weapons. He smiled at the station manager, a tall being with gray skin and large eyes. "Good morning," Jake said. "I'm here for the weekly trade meeting." The station manager took 3 steps backward. His hands shook as he checked his data pad. "Yes, Captain Morrison. Everything is ready. Please follow me, but stay at least 10 feet behind." Jake looked confused. "Is something wrong? Did I do something to offend you?" No, the manager said quickly. "It's just protocol when dealing with your species." They walked through the station corridors. Every alien they passed stopped talking and moved against the walls. Some even went into nearby rooms and closed the doors. Jake had experienced this reaction before, but he still didn't understand it. Dr. Lisa Carter sat in her laboratory aboard the human research vessel, Discovery. She studied reports from dozens of first contact situations. Every single one showed the same pattern. At first, alien species seemed happy to meet humans. They signed trade agreements and cultural exchange programs. Then something changed. "Computer, show me the timeline again," Lisa said. A holographic display appeared showing galactic history. For the first 50 years after humans joined galactic society, everything looked normal. Then, species after species quietly stopped visiting human space. They canceled meetings. They avoided human diplomats. They created excuses to end joint projects. "What happened during year 51? Lisa asked the computer. "Insufficient data," the computer replied. "Most alien records from that period are classified or missing." Lisa leaned back in her chair. Something had scared the entire galaxy, but no one would talk about it. The humans had done nothing wrong that she could find. They had helped with disasters, shared technology, and never started wars. Yet every alien species seemed terrified of them. A communication alert beeped. "Dr. Carter," came a voice over the speaker.
"We're receiving a distress signal from a Krillian research vessel."
"They say they've accidentally drifted into human space." "Are they in danger?" Lisa asked, "Not from space hazards. They seem to be in panic because they crossed into our territory." Commander Alex Turner piloted his rescue ship toward the Krillian vessel. Through the viewscreen, he could see their ship floating helplessly near the invisible border that marked human space. It wasn't really a border, just empty space. But every alien species treated it like a deadly barrier. "Krillian vessel, this is Commander Turner of the Earthship Helping Hand. We received your distress call. How can we help?" Static filled the communication channel for several seconds. Then a terrified voice replied, "Please don't hurt us. Our navigation system failed. We didn't mean to enter your space." "Hurt you?" Alex said, confused. "We're here to help. Do you need repairs? Medical assistance? Food? You want to help us?" "Of course. That's why we came." When Alex's ship approached the Krillian vessel, he could see alien faces pressed against their windows. They looked absolutely terrified. These were scientists and explorers, not soldiers, yet they acted like they were facing their worst nightmare. "This is crazy," Alex muttered to his crew. "They're more afraid of us than they would be of a black hole." His engineering officer, a young woman named Beth Parker, checked her instruments. "Their ship is fine. Just a simple navigation computer glitch. I could fix it in 20 minutes. "Krillian vessel," Alex called again. "We'd like to send someone over to repair your navigation system. With your permission, of course." The silence lasted so long that Alex thought they had lost communication. Finally, the Krillian captain replied, "You would do that? For us, why wouldn't we? Because you are humans." An hour later, Beth had fixed their navigation computer and given them extra power cells for their life support systems. The Krillian crew watched her work with a mixture of fascination and terror. They seemed surprised that she was just a normal person doing her job. "Thank you," the Krillian captain said as Beth prepared to leave. "We will tell others that humans showed us kindness." "I hope so," Beth replied. "Maybe someday we can be friends instead of strangers." After the rescue, Alex filed his report with Earth Command. He described how the aliens had been terrified for no reason he could understand. This was the 15th similar incident this year. Ships that accidentally crossed into human space acted like they had entered a death trap, even though humans always helped them. Back on the trading station, Jake Morrison finished his meeting with nervous alien merchants. They had agreed to trade rare minerals for human medical supplies, but the whole negotiation felt strange. The aliens kept asking if the humans would honor the agreement long term. "Of course we will," Jake said. "We always keep our promises." One of the merchants, a being that looked like a walking tree, spoke carefully. "Humans are known for their persistence. Once you decide something, you never give up." "Is that bad?" Jake asked. The merchant's leaves rustled in what might have been a shudder. "That depends on what you decide to do." As Jake walked back to his ship, he thought about that conversation. Humans were persistent, that was true. When they set goals, they worked hard to achieve them. When they made promises, they kept them. When they faced problems, they found solutions. These seemed like good qualities to him, but something about human persistence clearly frightened other species. Jake just couldn't figure out what it was. As far as he knew, humans had never used their determination to hurt anyone. They had used it to explore space, cure diseases, and help their neighbors. Yet every alien in the galaxy seemed to believe that human persistence was dangerous. They treated human space like a forbidden zone. Not because humans had threatened anyone, but because of something deeper, something that made every species in the galaxy afraid to find out what humans might do, if they ever decided to do it. The Great Library of Thraxus housed the largest collection of historical records in the galaxy. Historian Velmoth walked through the ancient halls, her 6 eyes scanning shelves that reached toward the ceiling. She had been given special permission to access the classified archives, something that happened only once every few decades. "Computer, show me all records related to first contact with humans," she said. "Warning," the computer replied. "Many files are restricted. Access requires special authorization. I have authorization code Omega 77. Access granted." Displaying available records, holographic files appeared around Velmoth. There were thousands of them, but she noticed something strange. Most records from the first 100 years of human contact were incomplete or heavily edited. Entire sections had been removed or marked as classified. Dr. Kevin Hayes sat in the reading room of Haven's Rest Public Archives. The neutral world attracted scholars from across the galaxy because it maintained objective historical records. Kevin was researching early human expansion for a book he was writing about Earth's colonial period. "Excuse me," he said to the alien librarian. "I'm looking for records about the Zanaki Confederacy's first diplomatic mission to Earth. The computer says the files exist, but I can't access them." The librarian, a tall being with blue skin and multiple arms, looked nervous. "Those files are restricted." "Restricted? But they're just historical records. Nothing classified about a diplomatic visit from 300 years ago." "I'm sorry," the librarian said, backing away. "You would need special permission from the Zanaki government." Kevin found this odd. Most historical records became public after 50 years. Why would a simple diplomatic mission still be classified after 3 centuries? Back in the Thraxus archives, Velmoth discovered something interesting. She found a personal journal from Ambassador Kretal, who had led the first extended Zanaki mission to Earth. The journal had somehow escaped the classification process. "Personal log, day 15. The journal began. "The humans continue to fascinate and disturb us. Today we observed what they call sports. These are competitive activities that humans do for entertainment." Velmoth read further. "The humans have an activity called marathon running. They run for over 26 miles without stopping. Many collapse from exhaustion, but they continue running. They seem to enjoy pushing their bodies beyond normal limits." The next entry was even more disturbing. We watched humans participate in something called an obstacle race. They crawl under barriers, climb over walls, and carry heavy objects for miles. When they fall, they get up and continue. When they are tired, they keep going. Our medical officer says this behavior indicates severe mental illness, but the humans consider it normal. Velmoth felt a chill run through her body. She had heard stories about human persistence, but she had thought they were exaggerated. Captain Danny Rogers led a medical relief mission to the hegemony world of Keta 5. A plague had infected the planet, and the local hospitals were overwhelmed. The hegemony had requested help from several species, but only humans had responded. Dr. Martinez, Danny called to his chief medical officer. How are the relief efforts going? We've been working for 72 hours straight, Dr. Martinez replied. The local medical staff keeps telling us to rest, but there are still patients who need help. Can you continue? Of course. We came here to save lives. We don't stop until the job is done. The local hegemony doctors watched the humans with growing amazement and fear. The human medical teams worked without sleep, barely stopping to eat. When local staff members collapsed from exhaustion, the humans covered their shifts too. They never stop, whispered Dr. Quinmeth, the local hospital director. It's been 4 days and they still keep working. How is this possible? They're humans, replied his assistant. They don't know how to quit. Lieutenant Amy Brooks was researching historical archives when she found something unusual. Hidden in the files was a video recording from an ancient first contact scenario. The video showed human engineers trying to solve a problem with an alien space station's power system. The problem seemed impossible. The power core was failing, and traditional solutions weren't working. The alien engineers had given up after 2 days of failed attempts. But the humans kept trying. In the video, Amy watched human engineers work for 6 straight days. They tried dozens of different approaches. Each failure only made them more determined to find a solution. They slept in shifts so someone was always working on the problem. This is attempt number 47, said the human chief engineer in the video. The last approach almost worked. Let's modify it and try again. The alien observers in the video looked increasingly disturbed. Why don't they give up? One asked. The problem is clearly impossible. They're humans, another replied. They don't understand the word impossible. On day 7, the humans finally solved the problem using a method no one had ever tried before. The power core was saved, and the space station was operational again. But the alien engineers looked terrified instead of grateful. They never stopped, one alien said. For 7 days, they never stopped trying. Velmoth continued reading Ambassador Kretal's journal. Day 32, we attended a human educational facility called a university. We observed students who had failed tests multiple times, yet they continued studying the same subjects. When we asked why they didn't choose easier topics, they said they wanted to understand difficult concepts. Day 35, we met a human scientist who had spent 15 years trying to cure a single disease. She had failed thousands of times but showed no signs of giving up. When we suggested she work on easier problems, she looked at us strangely. She said the disease was killing people, so she would keep working until she found a cure. Day 41. We are beginning to understand why humans frighten other species. It is not their technology or their weapons. It is their refusal to accept defeat. They approach every challenge as if failure is not possible. The final entry in the journal made Velmoth's blood run cold. Day 48. We asked the humans what they would do if another species threatened Earth. They said they would fight until they won or until every human was dead. They would never surrender. They would never stop. This is not bravery. This is something much more dangerous. Back on Haven's Rest, Kevin finally gained access to a partially unclassified report. It described a human mining operation on an asteroid that was supposed to be impossible to extract resources from. The asteroid was too hard, the environment too dangerous, and the profit margins too small. Every other species had declared the project impossible after initial surveys. But humans had spent 5 years developing new techniques. They had modified their equipment dozens of times. They had solved problem after problem that others said couldn't be solved. The humans succeeded where everyone else failed, the report stated. They didn't succeed because they were smarter or had better technology. They succeeded because they refused to believe the project was impossible. The report's conclusion was simple and terrifying. Humans apply the same relentless determination to everything they do. If they decide they want something, they will eventually get it. If they decide to solve a problem, they will eventually solve it. If they decide to go somewhere, they will eventually get there. This makes them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not because they want to hurt anyone, but because nothing can stop them once they make up their minds. Velmoth closed the journal and sat in silence. For 3 centuries, her people had avoided human space without really understanding why. Now she knew. Humans weren't dangerous because they were aggressive or violent. They were dangerous because they never ever gave up. In the galaxy's history, every species had limits. Every species knew when to quit. Every species understood that some things were impossible. But humans had never learned these lessons. They kept going when others stopped. They found solutions when others gave up. They achieved the impossible because they didn't believe in impossible. This wasn't a flaw in human thinking. This was how they had survived and thrived. But for every other species in the galaxy, the idea of beings who never accepted defeat was absolutely terrifying. Senior researcher Quintel stared at the data on his screen with growing horror. For months, he had been studying Earth's evolutionary history using samples and records obtained through careful diplomatic channels. What he had discovered would change how the galaxy viewed humans forever. "Computer, display the human evolutionary timeline," he said. The holographic display showed millions of years of human development. Quintel focused on the period when early humans developed their hunting strategies. Most species evolved as either prey animals that ran and hid, or as ambush predators that struck quickly and then retreated. But humans had evolved something entirely different. "Persistence hunting," Quintal whispered. "They're persistence predators." The computer displayed footage from Earth's nature preserves showing human ancestors hunting. They didn't chase their prey with bursts of speed like other predators. Instead, they followed their target slowly and steadily for hours, sometimes for days. The prey would run away, but the humans would keep following. Eventually, the target animal would collapse from exhaustion and the humans would catch it. "This explains everything," Quintal said. "Humans evolved to never give up the chase." Dr. Rachel Stone stood at the podium in the Grand Lecture Hall of the Galactic Institute. She had been invited to speak about human history to an audience of the galaxy's most brilliant minds. The hall was packed with representatives from dozens of species, all eager to understand the mysterious humans better. "Thank you for inviting me," Rachel began. "I'd like to tell you about humanity's journey from our home planet to the stars." She activated a holographic display showing early human settlements. Our ancestors were nomadic hunters who traveled vast distances across continents. They would follow herds of animals for hundreds of miles, walking for weeks or months to reach new hunting grounds. Several alien academics shifted uncomfortably in their seats. When our ancestors settled down and began farming, Rachel continued, they still kept that same determination. If a crop failed, they would try again the next year. If a location didn't work, they would move and try somewhere else. They never gave up on the goal of growing food. A Thraxian professor raised his hand. "Dr. Stone, didn't your ancestors ever accept that some goals were impossible?" Rachel looked confused. Why would they do that? If something was important enough to try once, it was important enough to keep trying until it worked. The professor's multiple eyes widened with fear. This same persistence, Rachel continued, drove humans to explore the oceans, map the continents, and eventually reach space. When the first rockets failed, we built better ones. When astronauts died, we improved our safety procedures and kept going. When Mars colonization seemed impossible, we spent centuries developing the technology to make it possible. The audience was completely silent now. Rachel couldn't understand why they looked so frightened. Captain Ben Miller's exploration ship, Pioneer, drifted in the Vega system with a completely failed navigation computer. The backup systems had also crashed and their communication array was damaged. Most space crews would have activated their emergency beacon and waited for rescue. Options? Ben asked his crew. "We could try to manually calculate our position using stellar observations," suggested Navigation Officer Carol Jensen. "It would take days and we might not get it right." "What about our mission to map the asteroid belt?" Ben asked. "Sir, without proper navigation, continuing the mission would be extremely dangerous, but not impossible." Carol hesitated. "No, sir, not impossible. Then we continue. Start working on those stellar calculations." The Aegis Science Division monitoring station picked up the Pioneer's signals and tracked their progress. The alien scientists watched in amazement, as the human crew spent 5 days manually calculating their position using primitive techniques. Instead of waiting for rescue, they fixed their problems and completed their mission. They refused to give up, reported the station commander to his superiors. Even when rescue would be easier and safer, they choose to solve their problems themselves. How long did the calculations take? 5 days of continuous work with no rest breaks. And they still completed their original mission? Yes, they mapped the entire asteroid belt and collected samples from 12 asteroids. They treated the navigation failure as a minor inconvenience. Engineer Kate Phillips stood on the surface of Kepler 438b, watching another atmospheric processor explode in a shower of sparks. This was the third major equipment failure in 2 months, and her alien consultants had already recommended abandoning the terraforming project. "The atmospheric composition is too unstable," said Dr. Vextor, the Krillian environmental specialist. "The radiation levels are higher than expected. The weather patterns are too violent. This planet cannot be terraformed." "Have we tried approach number 4 yet?" Kate asked. "Kate, we've tried dozens of approaches. Each one fails for different reasons." "Then we haven't found the right approach yet." Dr. Vextor's scales changed color, indicating stress. "Kate, some things are impossible." "Even for humans," Kate smiled. "My grandfather spent 30 years trying to cure genetic blindness. Everyone told him it was impossible. He developed 17 different treatments that didn't work. The 18th treatment restored sight to millions of people. This is different. No, it's not. It's just another problem that needs a solution." 6 months later, Kate's team successfully activated the first stable atmospheric processor on Kepler 438b. They had developed a completely new approach that no one had ever tried before. The alien consultants watched in amazement as the planet's atmosphere slowly began to change. How did they do it? Dr. Vextor asked his assistant. They never stopped trying. Every failure taught them something new. They used what they learned to develop better solutions, but they failed 47 times. They succeeded on attempt 48. The truth about human persistence began spreading. Through academic networks across the galaxy, species that had studied human behavior for centuries finally understood what they were seeing. Humans weren't just determined or stubborn. They were apex persistence predators who had never evolved past their hunting instincts. Dr. Quintal published his research in the Galactic Journal of Evolutionary Biology. His paper, titled Humanity, The Persistence Predator That Reached the Stars, became the most downloaded scientific document in galactic history. Human persistence hunting shaped their entire civilization, the paper explained. They approach space exploration the same way their ancestors hunted prey animals. They identify a target, whether it's a planet to colonize or a scientific discovery to make, and they pursue it relentlessly until they achieve success. This behavior pattern appears in every aspect of human society. They pursue romantic relationships until they find suitable partners. They pursue education until they master difficult subjects. They pursue careers until they achieve their goals. They pursue justice until wrongs are corrected. Most importantly, they pursue survival and the survival of their species with the same relentless determination their ancestors used to hunt mammoth across Ice Age continents. Any threat to humanity or their allies becomes a target for their persistence hunting instincts. The paper's conclusion sent shockwaves through galactic civilization. Humans do not make war the way other species do. When they identify an enemy, they do not seek quick victory or negotiated settlement. They hunt their enemies with the same persistence their ancestors used to hunt prey animals. They pursue the conflict until one side is completely eliminated or completely surrenders. This makes them the most dangerous species in galactic history, not because they are aggressive, but because they never stop. Reading rooms across the galaxy fell silent as academics realized what this meant. Every species that had maintained the unspoken rule about avoiding human space had been acting on evolutionary instincts. Their ancestors had been prey animals who survived by recognizing and avoiding persistence predators. Humans weren't just another spacefaring species. They were apex predators who had turned their hunting instincts toward exploration, science, and civilization building. When humans decided they wanted something, whether it was a cure for disease, a solution to hunger, or peace in the galaxy, they pursued it with the same relentless determination their ancestors had used to hunt prey across vast distances. And unlike their ancestors, Modern humans had spaceships, advanced technology, and the combined knowledge of an entire civilization to help them pursue their goals. They had become persistence predators on a galactic scale. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was the largest gathering in the organization's history. Every member species had sent representatives, and many had brought their entire diplomatic corps. The chamber buzzed with nervous energy as species that rarely spoke to each other shared their fears about humanity. Council leader Threxon called for order. His ancient voice carried across the chamber. "We are here to discuss the recent scientific findings about human behavior. Dr. Quintal's research has confirmed what many of us suspected for centuries." Ambassador Zektar of the Villani Empire stood first. "The persistence predator theory explains everything. Why humans never give up on their goals. Why they pursue objectives across vast distances and time periods. Why they terrify every species that encounters them." "But they have never attacked anyone," protested Ambassador Lyra of the Peaceful Centauri Coalition. "Humans have been helpful neighbors. They share technology and provide aid during disasters. That makes them more frightening, not less," replied Elder Vorth of the Crystalline Collective. "A predator that hunts for food is predictable. A predator that hunts because hunting is its nature is infinitely more dangerous." Admiral Susan Clark reviewed the military reports flooding into Earth Defense Force headquarters. Alien fleets were building up along the borders of human space, but something was strange about their positions. The ships weren't pointing toward human territory. They were facing outward. "Admiral," said Colonel Matt Brooks, her intelligence chief, "the alien fleets aren't preparing to invade us. They're building defensive perimeters. Defending against what? Against us. They're trying to contain human expansion." Susan studied the tactical displays. "But we're not expanding aggressively. Our exploration ships follow all the established protocols. That's what makes it worse," Matt said. "To them, our normal exploration looks like the beginning of a hunting pattern. Every human ship that leaves our space represents a potential threat that might never stop coming." The communication networks across the galaxy carried the same message in thousands of languages. "The humans are persistence predators. They hunt until they win. They never accept defeat. They never stop." On the trading world of Nexus Prime, alien merchants watched human traders with new understanding. The humans had always been fair and honest in their dealings, but now their behavior seemed sinister. When humans said they would honor long-term contracts, it sounded like a threat. When they promised to find solutions to supply problems, it sounded like a hunting vow. Dr. Chris Johnson sat in his office at the University of New Geneva, trying to understand the crisis developing around human space. As a philosopher specializing in interspecies relations, he had been asked to help calm alien fears about human nature. His video message was broadcast across the galaxy. "Fellow sapient beings, I understand your concerns about human persistence. Yes, we are determined by nature. Yes, we pursue our goals with dedication that other species find unusual. But please understand that we use these traits to help, not to harm." The response was immediate and negative. Comments flooded in from across the galaxy. "He proves our point. Even when trying to be peaceful, he sounds like a predator explaining why we shouldn't run. Notice how he doesn't deny being persistence predators. He just says they use it to help. What happens when they decide helping requires hunting us?" The calm, logical way he presents his argument is exactly what makes humans so frightening. They plan their hunts carefully. Commander Linda Hayes was studying xenobiology when she made a disturbing discovery. While researching why aliens reacted so strongly to humans, she found patterns in their behavior that revealed deep evolutionary programming. "Computer, analyze alien physiological responses during interactions with humans," she said. The data was clear. When aliens encountered humans, their stress hormones increased dramatically. Their heart rates sped up. Their muscles tensed for flight or defensive action. These weren't conscious reactions. They were automatic responses programmed by millions of years of evolution. "They can't help being afraid of us," Linda realized. "Their bodies recognize us as apex predators and react accordingly." She discovered that human eye contact triggered the strongest responses. Direct eye contact was how persistence predators focused on their targets. When humans looked directly at aliens during conversations, their subconscious minds interpreted it as being marked for hunting. Human posture was another trigger. Humans stood upright and moved with confident, steady steps. This was exactly how persistence predators moved when tracking prey. Even friendly humans walking normally appeared threatening to species that had evolved as prey animals. The way humans spoke was perhaps the most frightening trigger of all. Humans used clear, direct language and made definitive statements. They said things like, "We will solve this problem and we can make this work." To prey species, this sounded like a predator announcing its hunting intentions. On the frontier world of Haven's Rest, xenopsychologist Dr. Nancy Parker interviewed alien refugees who had fled from systems near human space. Their stories revealed the depth of galactic fear. "The humans came to our system to help with asteroid mining," said Crixton, a former mining engineer. "They were polite and professional. They shared their advanced techniques and improved our efficiency by 300%. "That sounds helpful," Nancy said. "It was terrifying," Crixton replied. "They worked constantly. When our crews needed rest, the humans kept working. When we said a particular asteroid was too difficult to mine, they found ways to mine it anyway. They made impossible tasks look easy. And this frightened you? They were so focused, so determined. Every day they worked toward their goals with machine-like persistence. We realized that if they ever decided our system was their target for conquest instead of cooperation, nothing would stop them." Another refugee, a scientist named Velara, shared her experience. "I worked with human researchers for 2 years. They were kind and respectful. They included us in their projects and shared credit for discoveries. But I had nightmares the entire time. Why? Because I watched them solve problems that our best minds had declared impossible. They would work on a single research question for months, failing dozens of times, never showing any sign of giving up. When they succeeded, they immediately moved on to the next impossible problem. The reports continued to pour in from across the galaxy. Humans building schools on worlds where no one thought children could learn. Humans cleaning up pollution that other species had declared permanent. Humans establishing trade routes through space that others considered too dangerous to travel. Every success made aliens more afraid. Each human achievement proved that they really were persistence predators who never accepted limitations. The galaxy began to understand that human kindness and human determination came from the same source: their absolute refusal to accept defeat. Captain Gary Mitchell received new orders from Earth Command. "All human ships are to maintain minimum contact with alien vessels. Report any unusual military buildups immediately. Avoid actions that might be interpreted as aggressive expansion." "Sir," Gary asked his commanding officer, "are we at war?" "No, Captain. But the entire galaxy is terrified that we might be. Our normal activities are being interpreted as hunting behavior. Every human ship that explores new systems looks like the beginning of a persistence hunt to species that evolved as prey animals. What do they think we're hunting?" Everything. The truth had finally emerged. For 3 centuries, alien species had avoided human space because their evolutionary instincts warned them about persistence predators. They had been right to be afraid, but not for the reasons they thought. Humans weren't dangerous because they wanted to conquer the galaxy. They were dangerous because once they decided to do something, nothing could stop them. If humans ever chose conquest as their goal, their persistence would make them unstoppable. If they chose to help someone, their persistence would make them impossible to discourage. The galaxy's fear wasn't based on what humans had done. It was based on what humans could do if they ever decided to do it. And that possibility terrified every species that had ever learned to run from predators. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. The Synthety Collective, an alliance of artificial intelligences that had achieved consciousness centuries ago, published a comprehensive analysis of human behavior. Unlike organic species, the Synthety had no evolutionary instincts to cloud their judgment. "We have observed humans for 300 years without the bias of prey animal programming," their report began. "Our analysis confirms that humans are indeed persistence predators, but this trait has manifested in their civilization as an unmatched drive for construction rather than destruction." The report detailed thousands of human activities across the galaxy. Humans do not hunt other sapient species. They hunt problems. They hunt diseases. They hunt ignorance and suffering. They hunt injustice and inefficiency. Their persistence predator instincts have been redirected toward improving life for themselves and others. When humans identify a problem that causes suffering, They pursue a solution with the same relentless determination their ancestors used to hunt prey animals. They do not stop until the problem is solved or until they have exhausted every possible approach. The Syntheti report was distributed throughout the galaxy, but many organic species remained skeptical. The fear of persistence predators was too deeply programmed to be overcome by logical analysis alone. Captain Gary Mitchell stood on the bridge of his exploration vessel, looking at a priority message from Earth Command. The Zarathi Empire was facing an extinction-level asteroid impact, and they had requested human assistance despite having no formal diplomatic relations. "Sir," said his communications officer, "the Zarathi have never allowed humans in their space before. They've been some of our most vocal opponents in the Galactic Council, and now they need our help." Gary replied, "Set course for the Zarathi system. Maximum speed." "Sir, there are over 4 billion Zarathi on that planet. Even with our fastest ships, we can't evacuate everyone in time. Then we'll have to find another solution." As Gary's ship headed towards Zarathi space, similar messages went out to every human vessel in the galaxy. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Human ships changed course from dozens of systems, converging on the Zarathi homeworld. Dr. Nancy Parker watched the human response from her research station. In her years of studying interspecies psychology, she had never seen anything like it. Humans were abandoning their own missions and rushing to help a species that had spent centuries trying to avoid them. "They're not doing this for political gain," she told her alien research partner. "They're not expecting anything in return. They're doing it because people are in danger." Her partner, a Thraxian named Keluvan, observed the human fleet movements with amazement. They're exhibiting classic persistence hunting behavior, but their target is the asteroid, not the Zarathi. Admiral Susan Clark coordinated the largest rescue operation in galactic history from Earth Defense Force headquarters. Human engineering teams worked around the clock to modify cargo ships into evacuation vessels. Human scientists calculated orbital mechanics to find ways to deflect the asteroid. Human medical teams prepared for the largest refugee crisis ever attempted. "Admiral," reported Captain Steve Anderson, "we have 500 human ships en route to the Zarathi system. More are joining every hour. What about the alien response?" "They're watching. Some species have offered to help, but most are just observing. They want to see what we do when we focus our persistence on helping instead of hunting." Captain Paul Davis led the first wave of human ships into Zarathi space. The local defense forces didn't challenge them, but they maintained a safe distance. Davis opened communications with the Zarathi government. "This is Captain Davis of the Earth Defense Force. We're here to help with the evacuation." The response came from Zarathi Prime Minister Hector. His voice shook with fear and desperation. "Why are you helping us? We have opposed humans in every council meeting for 2 centuries. "Because you need help," Paul replied. "That's all the reason we need." The evacuation effort became a masterpiece of human persistence and organization. Human crews worked without rest for days, ferrying Zarathi civilians to safety. Human engineers developed new deflection techniques to change the asteroid's course. Human doctors treated Zarathi refugees with the same care they would give to human patients. Dr. Lisa Carter worked in the refugee camps, treating Zarathi children for injuries and trauma. She noticed something interesting about their parents' behavior. At first, the Zarathi adults had been terrified of the human medical teams, but as they watched humans work tirelessly to save their children, their fear began to change into something else. "Doctor," said a Zarathi mother, "why do your people work so hard to help strangers?" "Because you're not strangers," Lisa replied. "You're people who need help. But we have been afraid of humans for so long." "I know. But fear doesn't change our responsibility to help when we can." The asteroid deflection operation required a level of persistence that amazed even human observers. When the first deflection attempt failed, human teams immediately began planning a second approach. When the second attempt only partially succeeded, they tried a third method. They refused to accept that the asteroid couldn't be moved. On the 7th attempt, using a technique that combined gravitational manipulation with controlled nuclear explosions, they successfully altered the asteroid's course enough to save the planet. The operation took 3 weeks of continuous work by thousands of human specialists. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as humans demonstrated their persistence in service of life itself. Every species that monitored the rescue operation saw the same thing. Persistence predators using their hunting instincts to save prey instead of destroying it. Ambassador Maria Torres stood before the reformed Galactic Council 6 months after the Zorathi rescue. The chamber was different now. Human representatives sat among the other species for the first time in centuries, and the atmosphere was more cautious than fearful. Honored members, Maria began, we understand that our nature frightens you. We are persistence predators. We don't give up when others would quit. We pursue our goals with determination that seems excessive to species that evolved different survival strategies. The chamber was completely silent. But I want you to understand what we hunt, Maria continued. We hunt disease until we find cures. We hunt ignorance until we gain knowledge. We hunt suffering until we create solutions. We hunt injustice until we establish fairness. We hunt problems until we solve them. What we don't hunt is people. What we don't hunt is conquest. What we don't hunt is dominance over others. Elder Threxen leaned forward. But what happens if another species threatens humanity? What happens if someone tries to harm humans or human allies? Maria's expression became serious. Then we would hunt the threat until it was eliminated or until it chose to stop threatening innocent people. We would pursue justice with the same persistence we use to pursue medical cures or scientific discoveries. That is what frightens us, Threxen said quietly. I understand, Maria replied. But consider this. Would you rather have persistence predators as your enemies or as your allies? Would you rather face human determination in conflict, or have human determination working to protect you? The question hung in the air as delegates considered her words. Dr. Nancy Parker presented her research on managing interspecies anxiety to a joint conference of human and alien psychologists. We've developed protocols that help alien species work with humans despite their instinctive fear responses, she explained. The key is understanding that the fear is real and biological, she continued. We can't make it disappear, but we can help both sides work together despite it. Her protocols included simple adjustments to human behavior, avoiding direct eye contact during initial meetings, moving slowly and predictably, explaining intentions clearly before taking action, and allowing alien partners to maintain safe distances until they felt comfortable. Humans also need to understand that alien fear responses aren't personal insults, Nancy explained. They're evolutionary survival mechanisms that served these species well for millions of years. The new diplomatic framework acknowledged both human nature and alien instincts. Trade agreements included provisions for managing anxiety responses. Joint scientific projects used protocols that helped alien researchers work alongside human teams. Cultural exchange programs included education about persistence predator psychology. The transformation wasn't immediate or complete. Many species remained deeply uncomfortable around humans, and some continued to avoid human space entirely. But others began to see human persistence as a valuable ally rather than a terrifying threat. The Zorathi became humanity's strongest advocates in the Galactic Council. Having experienced human persistence working for their benefit rather than against them, they understood the difference between being hunted by humans and being protected by them. Humans saved our entire species, Prime Minister Hector told the Council. They worked without rest, without payment, without any guarantee of success. They used their persistence to hunt solutions until they found one that worked. This is not the behavior of conquering predators. This is the behavior of protectors. As the galaxy slowly adapted to the reality of human persistence, new,